Well, hello there. Short talk in the trailer with an old guy, Uber Tuberubers and Tuberettes alike. If you're in this known universe, hey, drop in. Come on in. Have a beer. I'm drinking a Coors, and of course they still haven't sent my you know check for endorsement. I'm sure their product sales have just boosted through the roof because I drink it, right? It's a Saturday afternoon, and I had kind of a strange day today. I didn't really have much to do. Went down, had a little breakfast, and one of my favorite little. There's a young lady who's actually quite small, height wise. She's no longer the waitress down at the pit stop. I guess her and the boss went crossways. So I had a nice chat with the new lady. Her name's Emily, and I hope she can hang around for a while. And I didn't have a whole lot to do. I went in a little dinky plumbing job for a lady I know at church who has this weird series of issues with a Delta series. I believe it's 570. I can't remember, but these cartridges, I've never seen anything like it. She just goes through them like crazy, and about every 5 weeks they'll conk out. And it's like, huh? So I've never run into this before, and I've told her. And anyway, enough of that. It was about a 5 minute fix, and put it back together. And I thought, well, what would I like to do today? And I thought, well, I think I'd like to do something a little different. And so, with quitting smoking as of Friday morning, 1 week ago yesterday, so this would be day number 8 here. A week ago Friday was the last time I smoked a cigarette, and I've been really kind of going through a few things in the last 3 to 5 days. With when you're coming off of nicotine, boy, your mind plays all kinds of crazy tricks on you to try to get you to just trip up just one time, just smoke one cigarette, that's all. And as soon as I do, I know it's over. I'm going to just go right back to smoking. I've failed at that I don't know how many times, and I decided this time, well, I've stopped smoking before in the past. It's not rocket science. You have to get the nicotine out of your system. It takes about 48, 72, 76, 80 hours, somewhere in there, a strong 3 days probably, to get most of the nicotine out. But all that hand and mouth habit stuff and all the relationships. So anyway, I thought I'm just going to go do something different. And I thought, well, it's been a long time. I used to go to the movies here in town. It's called Allen Theaters. That's the franchise, the company that owns the theaters. And I used to go down there, and I guess it was around the CV-19 thing. I just pretty much stopped going to movies. But, in the meantime, I've noticed that movies have changed in just the last 3 years, 3 or 4 years. I think it was probably 4 years ago or more, when I used to go, I'd say once every 5 weeks, maybe every 8 weeks, to go see a movie at a theater. This was the first time I've seen a movie in, I'm thinking, over a year, but, I might have missed one in there somewhere, because lots of times I'll see a movie and completely forget that I ever saw the thing. Well, today it was a very strange movie, and I'm not going to give it much of a review. You can probably look online and find people who are experts or know what they're talking about with this whole Marvel franchise universe and the deal with Disney buying them out, and I don't know what else is involved. It's kind of a mess, to be honest with you. And as an example, this Reynolds guy, Ryan Reynolds, who plays the Deadpool character, he's making a lot of jokes, sideways jokes, with the Wolverine guy, Jackman, about the Disney studios and the deal that they gave him in the movie. So he's criticizing Disney marketing and Disney writing and stuff like that in a Disney film. And so, I mean, he's criticizing various. It's a very strange film. It operates at several levels. And one of the things you really have to buy into in terms of this is, this is so modern, this is so up to date, the idea of a multiverse, where you have many iterations of universes in which there are perhaps copies, but not quite, of me and of you and of everything else. And so those other units, in this case the other Wolverines or the other Deadpools, they have a way to kind of negotiate and meet across this chasm of space and time. Well, I don't like the multiverse idea in the first place. First of all, I think it's an ungodly concept. I'm old enough to remember when it was a brand new novelty, and it wasn't more than 25 years ago. It's a relatively new idea philosophically. I think it's bankrupt in terms of any kind of truth content. It has zero hope to it. It's the last refuge of lunatics, as far as I can tell. But this forms a lot of the backstage for the film and the story, because without a multiverse, the story just wouldn't work at all. And I'm not sure it worked in the case it was. The next thing I noticed that really, I mean, it just kind of, it's like if you just stop watching TV for about 5 years and then you go watch some at someone's home, you'll notice the whole thing has changed. The whole medium has become more distorted and corrupt. It's like there's a darkness in this now, and the level of violence, physical, gratuitous, insane violence, was just off the scale. I've seen a lot of violent movies in the past, and I'm not trying to come out on necessarily the side, though. We don't want to ever portray violence. No, that isn't necessarily it. But I mean, in this case, it was like a gruesome obscenity, which was being used as a way to get young people to laugh. The young people, I could hear them. Now it was a nervous giggle, it was a nervous laugh, but I could hear the young people giggling at these grotesque, just horrific things happening to physical bodies, human bodies. And so it's a brainwashing. It's a you're supposed to be dunking yourself in this multiverse idea. And then the third thing about it that, I mean, I don't want to wear you out, because like I said, you can probably go find a decent review of this thing here somewhere. But the thing that struck me about it was that there's an idea that in terms of the main story theme, and I'm not going to open it up for you in case I don't want to be a spoiler, oh, why did you tell me that part, But in other words, the idea is that if you can imagine linking human to human, just regular stuff, people kind of hanging around, having a good time as friends and associates, and this idea of a convivial, a warm relationship, regardless of our backgrounds, and we share humanity together in a kind of a birthday party, So in other words, you have this idea of a kind of a warm welcome, a warm human welcome, being on the other side of this crazy payload of violence and disaster and this phony baloney, multi-layered universe and stuff. The glory of the good news, the glory of the real news, is that the message says that the reason that there is a reality, one reality, is because he made it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any. And there'd be no conversation about this at that point either, because there'd be no point, there'd be no time. Time would not have been created, as far as we know. So in terms of the Christian view, what I'm seeing here, that this is a change in movie making, in my opinion, and it's not for the better. I don't appreciate what Disney has done to the Star Wars thing. I don't appreciate what Hollywood has done all over the map in the last 5 to 10 years. They just keep producing this garbage that nobody wants to see. And at any rate, the marketing of it was so weird, and I only just barely heard of the thing. I mean, I knew it was in theaters, but I haven't heard a word about it in the reviews or whatever at all. No one's talking about this film, and I can see why. It's not a film that grabs you by the heart. It's a film that kind of flogs you in the head, and then tickles your eyeballs with like explosions and stuff. And the dialogue. I mean, the dialogue is off the scale. Wise guy, sniping back humor, wit, all silver tongue glow, as if this guy just on the fly, as he's in the middle of these horrendous fights, thinks of these really clever one-liners and delivers them with perfect timing. I mean, it's just weird, It'd be like crossing Jack Benny, the master of comic timing, with Bruce Lee, what is that? And and so at any rate, I didn't care for the movie. I have seen one Deadpool movie that I'm aware of in the past. In fact, I saw it recently, again on this algorithm for free, and it was okay. It was humorous at times, and again, the witty dialogue. But I think this is sort of carrying it too far. This Deadpool thing, it's a Marvel Universe episode. It loosely ties in. There's no other Marvel Universe people necessarily involved. And it just strikes me as being very odd in terms of what we're looking at in our lives, right? What I think what people want in our time is that, with given the fact of how crazy politics are, and how the money itself, the banking industry as they call it, the banking is going to go nose down, and the dollar itself, and this is all going to happen in a matter of months, perhaps even weeks, I don't know, but certainly by the beginning of next year, the dollar situation in the United States is going to be dire. And what people want is they want a safe haven. They want a traditional answer. They want things that make sense, things to tie into. They want good news. And so I got to thinking about it. The good news is that if you take a movie like Deadpool and what's the guy called anyway, with the Wolverine, yeah, Deadpool / Wolverine, and if you tried to tell it in terms of the real good news, the good news is that there is a reality, and it's happening. It's flowering. It's opening up moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day, across time. But at any given moment, which is like right now, we just went past it, that was the only now that will ever be. You can't go back to it. You can remember it, you can to some degree anticipate it, but you can't hardly notice it as it goes by. The good Lord made reality, and in this way, with time, we have a future to look forward to, we have a past we can remember, and then we have a present. Our problem is that in that situation, in the reality which God has made, we don't have a place before Him because of our upbringing, because of what happened to us at creation. What happened to us, I mean, in our conception. We became fallen creatures. We became humans. And as fallen creatures, we are no longer able, or even willing to try, frankly, to please our Father in heaven. And so we wonder, how could we ever be loved? How could we ever be accepted? How could we ever be welcomed when we know ourselves, just at least to some degree, how rotten we truly are? How rotten we've been to other people, how rotten we are to ourselves, how rotten we've been to the Father. I mean, whatever. And so what we end up is in this weird situation, and Deadpool captured a little bit of that psychological angle right there. The hero knows that he's deeply flawed, and yet he's still trying to do something to not necessarily redeem himself, but at least to save his world, so that so he becomes a world saver, right? Hey, how'd that happen? In fact, he even calls himself Marvel Jesus at least some point in this thing, more than once, I believe. And so there's this idea in us as creatures, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, I do want to be welcomed, I do want to be involved with the new creation, and yet I know that by birth and by behavior and by most of my actions, in fact, and a lot of my words, I'm demonstrating the opposite. I'm demonstrating the old man, the flesh, that corrupted system, and I know that that's not acceptable on its own. In other words, it's not an acceptable pattern. So what do? The best that you can do is not good enough, and you can't really change yourself to produce better or good enough to be acceptable. What's your angle? And so in the Deadpool angle, it becomes all mouth, all lip, very clever, multi-layered, inferential junk, and you have to be very fast on the draw. And of course, I missed half of his references because he's probably citing ancient Marvel movies that you'd have to consult a Marvel enthusiast to even know what the heck he's referring to. But in our real world, we look at ourselves and we realize, at least I do, that I'm frankly unacceptable as a person. I still try to treat other people well, but in other words, if the standard is perfection, well, then there's no hope, right? And so what I was interested in doing was pointing that out to God. He kept talking about how strongly he felt for us, how much he loved us, how he had devoted himself to care for us. And I kept thinking, you've got the wrong group. You're looking for holy people. Move on. I'm doing you a favor. I'm clearing the books for you. There's been apparently some miscommunication, and Mr. God, you think that I'm the one you want to deal with. I'll tell you right now, if you're looking for the perfect one, the righteous son, move on. You've got the wrong dude. And so I was trying to straighten things out. But anyway, if you think of that kind of weird looping sequence, how we're both for and against ourselves, depending on how you look at it at any given time, and couple that with a kind of a meaningless universe with just multiple iterations. There's nothing special about this reality at all. It's just one of an infinity of other realities. What does that say? Who does that value? Who does that put on a pedestal, huh? And so I got to thinking about some of these things, and so you have to use the fallen human psyche in order to tell a story. And it has to be true enough to human ambition and human sight to be understandable. Now this movie just barely qualifies as understandable. And some of the scenes, the way they link them in terms of violence and stuff, it's just a crazy fiesta of destruction for the eyes. If your eyes are into looking at things blowing up, well, you'll love the flick. But in terms of our way that we want to be having a life where we all want our lives to make sense, right? We want a life that isn't just, I got up this morning, I breathed air, and I went to the bathroom, and I put on clothes, and I sweat some in the front yard, and then I laid down, and that was the end of the day, or whatever. We want a life that has significance, and the only one who can grant significance is the significant one. And so the way that the Bible speaks is that it doesn't speak exactly in terms of me seeking out God. Although, yes, we are indeed to seek the Lord. The fact is that if you're aware of Him at this moment and you're desiring Him and you want to grow in His Word and you want to be more in contact with Him in spirit and in truth, it isn't because essentially so much you sought Him out. He's come and He's found you. And He's waking you up, and He's bringing you into the real world. The real world is of His making. And in that real world, He's at the center. He's the significant one. And so as we begin to look at the world through these new eyes, and speaking of new eyes, I'm still working on the vision thing. I'm going to have the other eye, the left eye, will be surgerized on Tuesday, we hope. The last week's version, as far as I know, is doing fine. I'm still supposed to wear that little plastic dish thing to protect my eye while I sleep. And they don't want me sleeping on my right-hand side, but, I've been actually doing fine. I thought that was going to be a real pain in the neck learning to sleep on my back in that Chase Lounge thing, but it's actually been all right. I sleep differently, let's put it that way. I don't sleep as sound. But I'm still able to sleep without, turning around like a rotisserie chicken all the time. So if you want to see a good movie, you're just going to maybe kind of sum things up here, getting, a little near the end. If you want to see a good movie, don't bother with this one. I can't really recommend it in good conscience. Or if you do want to see it, don't make the mistake I did and pay money and sit down in the theater. Find out some streaming service where you have control of the knob, and if you want to, you can speed it up or slow down or go back and look at something again, because really it's eyeball candy and it's ear candy. Just all this real witty trash talking dialogue. That's almost 80% of the movie right there, and it didn't do much for me. So people want to have a life that's meaningful, and they know that of myself, I don't actually deserve it. I'm not really a good person in that sense. But we still want life. We still want to be operating under some purpose involving God and truth and reality, rather than just, well, the fact is I was hungry and I ate dinner and that was it. We want our lives to be organized according to the principles that He's laid down of truth and of justice and of the sound reality. And the reality is this, and this is kind of where I want to end for today. Don't even imagine that as the world continues to turn, your stomach and mine, as this whole thing falls into a cataclysm of political disaster, financial ruin, all kinds of economic just mayhem is coming. When this thing begins to actively fall apart, don't allow yourself to be trapped by the idea of multiverse, that there's parallel other worlds out there. There's another world out there where this whole fiasco did not happen. No, pony up and realize there's only one reality. And the author of the real, the one who calls himself I am, or I be, he has called you into existence at this time in the real reality, and your job, like mine, is to bring forth fruit in His name, to reflect the light of the good news, repeat the message in the Bible, teach and do good. In other words, we're to be part of an ongoing dynamic growth, which the devil frankly cannot halt. This new wholesome and real life called the kingdom, or the kingdom of God, or the kingdom of heaven, He's already got this thing running, and it's in our hearts and it's in our minds. He's changing us day by day, and our testimony is about the goodness of Jesus Christ as part of our testimony under His gift of salvation, of forgiveness, of reconciliation, which He has built Himself at Calvary and the empty tomb, and through sound preaching has declared to the four corners of the earth, He's coming soon. The King comes soon. And so our testimony is about Him. We're bragging up Jesus. And so, if you want to watch a good movie, maybe go watch another one. But this latest iteration of the, what's his name? The Deadpool guy. I can't recommend it. Not in good conscience. I mean, I'm not trying to be a narrow and a hypocritical person. I'm just saying it really wasn't that entertaining. It's really not that well written. And it's not satisfyingly done as a story. And so, leave it alone. But the fact is that we do build stories, we write stories, we make stories. At the end of the movie, just sit down and watch for 5 minutes or whatever it is. The titles going by. How many names went by at the end of this movie of people who were responsible for the work here? Like 3,000 or something. I swear there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names. Who are all these people? It took thousands of people, months and maybe even a year or more, to glue all these effects into one kind of apparently coherent picture, which is happening so fast you can barely follow it in the first place. And but it's a group effort. It was a huge idea to lead, I think, young people astray. And the astray part is to accept violence, to accept the blowing up of humans, and treat that as high comedy. That, by virtue of being here in our world, tells me we've got some bad news coming soon. The next generation is not being prepared to stand up for what's right and true. Just a thought from an old man. And you guys have a good day anyhow. It's tomorrow's a Sunday. Get up, go to church. Maybe I'll skip a morning video. I don't know. I'll probably get up and do a little video, but I just kind of wanted to do that bogus review of a movie that maybe I won't go see another movie for another 5 years. But I did notice, and it's I guess what I really want to finish with, is that I've noticed in just the last 3 or 4 years, it seems that these movies are so much darker. It's like this occult thing, supernatural powers, vicious wickedness afoot, and they're very, very clear in Hollywood about how to picture the face of evil. They picture the face of evil an awful lot. The Bible pictures the face of good God the Father, and He is leading His children home, and His face is seen in the face of Jesus Christ. He said, if you've seen me, you have seen the Father. And so we see by the hearts of faith, we believe that He has spoken in our lives, and He has. And He's going to change us around, and one day we will see with these eyes of flesh, our great King in His human body, resurrected and glorified forever, present with us now, and present with us then and unto everlasting days. You're on the winning side, friend, and no matter how dark it looks, your life is significant. You do matter, because you do have a place in the forward momentum of the King spreading His grace into this world. How do I know that? You got a mouth. Start saying true things. Start saying true things, even if only to yourself, and then tell Him, I buy that. I really believe that's true. I believe you did resurrect, Lord Jesus, and I believe that you're living in my heart right now. And by saying it, it helps alter the world. It helps make your life a little better, and perhaps someone else around you might benefit too. Bear witness of what's true and do what's kind. The Savior walks this way, and He calls us to it. And I would say, sounds like the voice of sanity calling, if you ask me. Have a good day, and God bless. Bye-bye.